In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. I was told as I just came here how they took pieces from our St. Callistus, or from what I understood, and they built the crypt down below with the marble, and some of the marbles, some of the pieces, some of the design features there. And as I was kneeling there, just praying right now before I came over here, I just thought about how everything has a history. Every single piece of marble came from some stone, some rock, some mountain in some place. And every piece of wood, every splinter has a place, came from a tree, came from a seed, from a former tree. Everything has a history. But what about mine? And when I ask, what about mine, I'm referring to you. So as I'm going to tell you this story right here, I want you to walk through this journey, this story, and see where God's speaking within your life. Sometimes you're the one receiving another's hope. Sometimes you're the one giving hope to another. Okay? But for me, I do want to tell, this is a beautiful story. I've shared this one many times. And like, you got to write a book about it. You got to write a book about it. So I'm not going to write a book because I barely graduated high school. So if someone wants to write a book about it, no problem. But I'll get to share it here. I'll share it here. And it's a journey where I have to respect myself, even though it's helped me to be where I am today. And it is a beautiful journey of hope. It starts somewhere. And for us, knowing, I know you don't think so, but I am Vietnamese. So for those of you wondering, I'm 100% Vietnamese because my parents are sitting here somewhere, right? And they tell me they're Vietnamese. So I have to believe that I'm Vietnamese. But I'm going to start back even before their story to where my dad, at some point, when he was born, he was in the middle of a war. And again, why I want to tell this story and why I'm sticking with English is because I want to share this story outside of our own culture because it's such a beautiful story. But if I stay within Vietnamese, we can't distribute that story, right? And so my dad was just a child in the middle of a war when he was born. And his mother thought, okay, so I don't want to raise my child in this future, his history, this communist history, or this future within the communist culture. So I have to flee. And what the Americans did was they said they're going to offer you the opportunity, if you're living in the north while the country was divided, it was the north fighting against the south. If you're living in the north and you want to go to the south, the American Navy will transport you. You will get onto their ships. You take whatever's on your back only, and we will transport you down to the south. Right? I think if I understand this correctly, this is when the Vietnamese would call it Yin Cư Vietnam, right? Đi từ miền Bắc xuống miền Nam, from the north to the south. And so my grandmother, not her actual picture, but we found a picture. So I sat down with my parents, but very similar, because I was born when my grandmother was still alive. She passed away when I was 14. And honestly, she looked just like this at home. She was still just like this. She didn't use this, but she would dress just like that still at home. Me growing up in America today. I grew up here, right across the street, not far from here, born and raised in Westminster, right behind Phúc Lộc Thọ, okay? Right in Santa Ana, Westminster. But my grandmother, the story is, my dad said all he knows is when the story that came back from him was that my grandmother took whatever she had on one side of the basket, and my dad, at 3 years old, on the other side. That was it. That's all she had. A few clothes, maybe that was it. A few pots and pans, if that. And then my dad. Because the other ones were older. He was the youngest child of the family. And so they went down to the south. And as they went down to the south, this is when the gratitude for America, when my parents would explain to me, they said the Americans, what they did was they provided a place of living for the ones who came from the north down to the south. And so they would plow these fields. They would prepare these fields out on the countryside where they would make these routes, these long. They would attach it to the waterways and then extend out these, like, imagine a long waterway, and then they would dig long ditches all the way through. And from there, you get about maybe 1/8 of a mile of waterway, and about, I'd say maybe 20 feet, 30 feet, if my memory serves me, because I got to see it one time. It's about 30 feet wide by about 1/4 mile deep, and that was your rice paddy that belonged to your family. And they had hundreds of these. And so they had prepared this land before bringing the north down to the south. And then my family got one of those plots. And they give you a little concrete slab the size of, if I remember, maybe 10 by 15 or so. And then you get to do whatever you wanted on top of that. Build a metal, hay, grass, whatever. But that was yours. That was your property now. And so that's where my grandma left from the north, went on to the south, and they had that plot of land. And so I want to fast forward a little bit more. That's the upbringing that my parents had. And my parents, growing up, got married at a fairly young age. By the age of 20, my mom had already been married, had 2 children, and my dad 25. Okay? And my dad, he told me, for some reason in his mind, at 25 years old, many of us are over 25, okay? And some of us are not there yet. Yeah, you're not 25 yet. Are you? No. So you're thinking, I have 2 children, and he was saying, I do not want to raise my children in this future where you have to deceive, steal, and cheat in order to make a living. I may be able to do it, but I do not want to form my children in such a culture. So, what does he do? He goes and he says, we have to leave this place. But we leave where? It's like for us saying, hey, we got to leave and go to Pluto. It's that strange because he's never seen America. He's never seen other lands. He just knows we cannot be here. So if there was a seed in their hearts, in their minds, I need a future for my children. At 20 years old, 25 years old. And so they would go and try to escape this country. The normal, most common route would be, as I told you, those waterways, those long, deep rivers, and then these alley waterways that come across. In the markets, they have these things where the women would go, the families would go, and in the morning they would sell fruits, vegetables, whatever they had, or grain, and they would go out into up or down the main river. And this is like your market. This is your little storefront, your mobile storefront. And so they would do that. Right? The idea is the most common escape route is you could rather either go inland, go towards inland, or go out to sea. And this is a time where it's already post-war. But he realizes, and the simple story he would tell me, if there was a cement truck, by the time I went to pick up at the place where it gathered up the original cement, the first stop, they'd take off some of the cement, add some sand. The second stop, they would take off some more real cement, add some sand. And then everybody just takes a piece of the pie. But that's how you make a living. You just shave off, you cheat another person, you cheat another person. They're thinking, we can't do this. I want my children to be honest, God-loving people. And so they said, we have to escape. And how this escape works is, you get your family into this little thing. But you can't all go in one at a time, because if you go in all one at a time, they're going to realize, why is your whole family going out to market? Maybe you want to go out to sea. Maybe you want to escape. So the idea here is you put your family in several of these, but each main river is like a mile across, at least. No phones, no communications. You get into one of these little boats at the right time, on the right day, on the right morning, and you make your way out to sea and you meet at sea. For us now, when we go to the mall without your phone, you feel absolutely naked. It's like, no, mom, what am I supposed to do? I don't have my phone. Imagine being divided, days apart, days away in preparation for this. No communication. It's by sheer hope that we will make it out alive. And so there are so many families that go, and then they get caught up, and they don't make it out alive. They don't make it to the bigger ship, or somebody gets caught, and a few of them go. Some die in the process. They don't know. But you're willing to take that chance. Why? Because there's a better future out there somewhere, and it's worth it. So my parents tried. They tried in one of their... So the idea is, with a bigger boat, this is an example. Again, the boat's not very long. But it looks like, okay, everybody's up on top, right? But the idea is it's supposed to be a fishing boat, and they were saying this is even bigger than what they had. A fishing boat, imagine if you had one of these boats out at sea, and the police come and see it. It's like, you're clearly not a fishing boat, right? Do you know where everybody has to be? Down below. The vast majority of all those people are below deck in the dark. And then 2, maybe 3 people up above, pretending or looking like they're going fishing. So the idea here is that they would go out there. My parents would try. They would try, but it's so easy to get caught. So he tried once when he had 2 children. They got caught. My dad got caught, got put in prison. He was in there for a month. And he was out there, and he would collect data, learn. Why did you get caught? How does this work? How was your uncle? How was your aunt successful? How did they get away? And then he came back and he tried it again. And so he tried it again. And once he tried it again, but you can't just go and try again. You have to sell your life savings. Everything, literally everything. Like how my grandmother had just that basket and my dad, you sell everything and you go. So he tries it again. And this time my mom gets caught. And now they had another child, so they're number 3, my sister. And so my mom described it as like a pig pen, just a square pen outside dirt. And the other woman said, just let her cry. Just let her cry her lungs out, that they'll be so annoyed they'll let you go home early. Imagine having an infant 4-year-old child in that place where nowadays you're like, no, I'm going to baby, I'm going to get the best stroller, the best formula, the best milk, everything perfectly. And over there is a child that's barely staying alive. And why? For our children. Because maybe they might get a chance at life that we don't get to have. Maybe. A maybe is good enough. I trust you, God. I trust you. And they try and try again. 3rd time. Now my dad's planning the trip. He's trying to organize everything, placing it all together. But instead of actually giving his life savings to somebody else this time, so that they can go and invest and go and wait for that ship out there, he's thinking, I'm going to collect money. I'm going to organize the trip myself and have other people invest. So he organizes a boat like this, out at sea, and then this trip. But the trip gets spoiled. They fail. There's so many details, I won't be able to cover it. It fails, and one of those people who invested into my dad's trip, he thought that my dad had scammed them. And so what does he do? That man finds his way back into the neighborhood where my parents live, and they take his son. Without him knowing, they kidnap his son. He's about 2 years old right now. And so my dad goes, and he starts digging in the ditches. As I told you, kids will play in the river, the big river. He's digging, looking for possibly a corpse. At least see my son, maybe he drowned, whatnot. But later on, he finds out that somebody had kidnapped him because he thought that he had scammed me and I'm going to take your son. So 2-3 months later, when they come back and ask for a ransom, he gives the ransom, receives my brother, and he says, do you want to see mom? And all my brother says, mom's dead. All he would say is Matchetra. Because that's what they told him, so he would stop crying and asking for mom. Still till today, they blame themselves for those months that he has been gone and for the person that he's become, and to what has happened as an effect of all of that. As parents, what do we do? We do things for our children, and we hope and we hope and we hope. We hope and we fail, we hope and we fail, we hope and we fail. But we continue to get ourselves back up because there is a chance my child might have a better future. And so I go. And eventually they make it out to sea. They go out to sea, and now, just because you're in the ocean doesn't mean you're free. They finally make it out there. And once you're out there, there's so many different possibilities, so many things. They've heard from when they were in prison of pirates. Pirates from Thailand. You know what they would do? They know that these ships, once they get out there, they're holding on to their greatest treasures. They're going to rape the women, take the goods, burn the boats, and leave you for dead. No, not Pirates of the Caribbean, because those are like pretty awesome pirates. Like, no, these are real life, modern day pirates that will kill you. They know that they're out there, but it's worth the risk. And then there's communist police. And then there's the ocean. And then the weather. But we're going to go anyways. We're going to take that risk. So when we get up there, they get out there, they get out to sea. And the very first night, there's this thing, I've never heard of it, I don't understand, but they say it's like a whirlwind. Or where it's like almost like sucks them under because it's just something within the water. Imagine everybody down below, or her perception of it. Everyone's down below, in the deck, in the dark. 30 people. Do you know what would happen when you're seasick in the dark out in the open ocean? Yes, you would be scared, but then you would also vomit. You'd be sitting in other people's vomit. Because you're sitting in there, you're scared, and what would they tell me? They said at the end of it, there's a statue of Mary in the corner, and they would just pray the rosary the whole time. Just pray and pray and pray. And they saw up on top, my dad, since he organized that trip, he saw a boat that came to help them. So there were boats that would come, and what this boat, as the boat was approaching, it's a bigger boat. And what they usually do is, let's say you're getting like kind of twirled in that whirlwind, a bigger boat would come and push you off to the side to get you out of that focal point. But as that boat came, they're seeing in their mind the descriptions of this boat or what they've heard from in prison of what a pirate ship looks like. It's a little bit bigger. And there are pirates on there, and it looks something like this one. So they come on board, they set hooks, they pull their boats onto theirs, and they bring the woman and the children on board, and they put them in separate rooms. And so as my mom, she was saying, as they were coming up closer, they were cooking rice up on top, and she had this stove, this coal and everything. She would take it and she would rub her face and her body full of this charcoal. Why? Because they're going to rape me and kill me. And so imagine the trauma as you're going through and these things are happening. And yeah, so they board their ship. They bring the woman into one room, children to another one, men into another one. But they were describing to me, they said that they fed them. They were feeding them. Very strange. And then the very next, they had them sleep there. They didn't do anything. And then the very next morning, a bigger boat came. And then they pushed over these boxes from their boat over to theirs, from the pirate ship over to theirs. And they said that they were crackers and cookies. It makes zero sense. If I had another hour to tell the story, I'm going to have to play it out. But I'm going to tell you right now why that happened. Later on, they discovered that there is a tradition in Thailand for New Year's tradition that if you are bad to people on New Year's Day, you will have a bad year. If you are good to people on New Year's Day, you will have a good year. Do you realize that if they had encountered those pirates on any other day, 365 days of any other day of the year, I would not be standing here right now. And yet that's where they were. They hoped and trusted God. There was a moment where they encountered the communist police. Miraculously, they let them go. They finally made it to this place where my dad was describing. He's like, we saw this place where we could tell that it was land. But it's so far off, you don't know what land it is. Because you were going in circles, you don't know if you're going to Thailand, if you're going to Cambodia, if you're going to the Philippines, you don't know. It just all looks the same. It's open ocean. So if you see land, you think, hopefully, you're going somewhere else. But as they were coming closer to this land, close enough to see what people looked like, they saw the people, they were all armed with weapons, with rifles. And it was a military base. But it was a Thailand military base. So at least they had made it that far enough. But their policy was they will not receive refugees at a base. So they filled their boats, their jugs of water, gave them some food, and sent them back out to sea. Like, when does this end? Because there have been other boats that encounter Vietnamese again, and then they're captured. But here, they're sent back out to sea, and then eventually they make it to a refugee camp farther down up the coast. And one story that my dad would mention, he's laying, there's a holding area before you actually get to a refugee camp. They lay you in a temple area, you're just on the ground, and he wakes up in the middle of the night. My dad, my mom, 3 children, an uncle, and my grandmother were all on this trip. He wakes up in the middle of the night and he says there are rats running all over his body. And he looks up, he sees the ceiling, and he could not be any more overjoyed because he's free. He's no longer in Vietnam. That's not my ceiling. That's not my roof. I'm in a different place. I'm free. There are no rats, no vomit, no nothing that could take away that joy. I've finally made it out. I'm free. So eventually, they prepped them. And what they did was really neat. They had programs where if you were going to go to America, to Germany, to France, they would send you to different countries to prep you. So my parents went to this other place where they had these mock village, like neighborhoods. They would go in and they would have houses with refrigerators, restrooms, washing machines, dishwashers, and everything. and then teach them how to use American appliances. It didn't really make any sense to my parents at that time, but they realized people who've gone before, they would make it to America and they couldn't figure out how to use a stove or a refrigerator and food would go bad. So they had to enculturate them, teach them how to live in these countries. And every refugee camp dealt with other countries where they were going to go to, which was fascinating. So eventually they made it to, I'm not going to make all of this. That's what they looked like when they got off the boat. My grandmother, my dad, my mom, my older sister, my older brother, the one that got kidnapped. Oh wait, my older brother, the one that got kidnapped, and my older sister. There's some sisters here in white. Can you raise your hands, please? Can you raise your hands, sus? All the sus in white, all the Dominican sisters? Yeah, I have them raise their hand because she's in their order with them. Sister Anna Pauline. She was the one that went to prison with my mom that had them just cry and cry and cry. But eventually, they make it. They finally make it out of this place that they've been fighting their whole life to get out of. Time and time again, risking their lives one after another after another. And you know where they arrived? They arrived at a place where they got to experience freedom. The freedom that we get to see, we get to experience today. It's amazing. Of all the story, of everything that I've just told you right now, of all of their struggles, all of their sacrifices, the gamble where they began to struggle was once they arrived. Because they risked their lives to make it here, but imagine now, they came to a place where they got to raise their family here. First, the first three, in America, land of the free. But when you make it to America, you don't speak English, raise 3 children, and then I was born shortly after that, and 3 more after that, so we're 7 children. 7 children. Mom can't go to work, mom has to stay home and be with us. And dad, raising 7 children and his mother, we grew up in a small apartment. I absolutely loved it growing up. We had so much fun, I had no idea what was going on. I just never saw him because he worked like a slave to keep us alive. And here's a quality. He would say, I think it was, if you made over $2,000 a month, then you would no longer receive food stamps. So there are people that will make just under $2,000 or only report up to $2,000 so I could get food stamps, get those benefits, and make what I have, and then maybe on something on the side. But he says, but if I have the energy and the ability to do it, and if I could surpass it, why not? Because there are people there who are struggling who can't do it. Let them benefit from that. Well, I may have to struggle more, but if God has given me a body, why not? And so he works and works and works. Works in a factory, doesn't speak English because it's just his head's down, work, 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 work. My mom's at home, doesn't speak English. Still till today, they don't speak English. They don't understand what I'm saying right now. That sounds funny, but I'm not kidding. So imagine, at home, everything is cơm, thịt kho, cá kho, rice, cơm, right? Rice and pho and noodle and everything. But when we leave the house, it's English. Vietnamese culture in the house, American culture outside of the house. Do you know who raised us? I grew up in Westminster. Society raised me. Do you know what happens when parents have no authority over you and they can't see what you do because they can't defend or understand what is going on? Society will raise you. And so this beautiful family coming to this country was very short-lived because they got older. As soon as they could, high school pregnancy, drugs, prison, sneaking out, dating, lying, cheating, theft. We got to a free country, and now they began to suffer. Because we gave our children freedom, and they wasted it. Imagine that pain. What else are we supposed to do? I don't know. I've given you everything, and you just throw it away. One after another. Oldest, to second, to third, to fourth, to fifth, to sixth. We made our parents' lives a living hell. Because we didn't care. Why would we? Life was so much more fun on the outside. Why would we care? So we just took turns. So that dream that they had growing up, giving us America and everything was so good, eventually, I skipped the part, look, this handsome young boy was born. That's me. Eventually, they're more after me too. But this beautiful family here, this dream of America, everything being perfect, once you give them freedom, they would know how to use it, would they not? But that dream changes. Because the outside things are good. How often do we want to secure ourselves with this safety, that car, that house, that job, everything? But then on the inside, I know you understand because you have children. If you have children, you know what it means to suffer. And so that's what they got to see. And so what does that do? It starts to put a wedge between the working husband, and he comes home, and it's like, you cannot go to school. So I was joking before, I said I barely graduated high school. At least with the Vietnamese. I don't know if I said it with English. I literally barely graduated high school. I don't even know what business I have standing in front of you speaking right now. My mom had to take me to a special education location my senior year so I can get enough credits to graduate high school, because I could care less. And the only reason why I even got that far was because I was on the basketball team, and so I had to keep my grades up to a D- average. Yes, D-. And I'm standing right here. If I'm not a walking miracle, I don't know what else can be proof. Okay? So imagine that wedge where he comes home from work and he's like, all you have to do, you have one job. I slave day in and day out. I leave before they wake up. I come home after they come home. You literally have one job: raise the children. I don't know what to do. I'm doing as best I can. I don't know what to do. And so the very children they're trying to raise destroys the very relationship that brought them together, their own marriage. I don't know what to do. And so at one point, let me go back. My mom takes her, when she was much younger, not knowing what else to do, I have nowhere else to go. I'm bound, I am stuck. I'm in despair, I am hopeless. I am going to take my own life, but in the process, I will relieve you of one child. So she writes a note, she keeps it in her, and her plan is to jump in front of a semi-truck, just to end her life. And to take a child with her so that it could lessen the burden off of my dad. How often do we feel so stuck that death, that suicide, becomes the relief? That is despair. That is the vision. There is nothing out there. There is no hope. Fast forward a little bit, they encountered a movement that showed them how to love, how to work within a marriage, how to encounter difficulty and surpass. And so little by little, they started coming together, and as a team, just process. But as we were growing up, still, understanding that this is so incredibly difficult, and yet we're still making our lives so miserable. There's one story I'd like to share. As I was growing up, I did want to be a good kid. I did. I'm sure who doesn't want to be good? I don't want to make my parents' lives miserable. It's just that making them happy is just not fun. So I had this one story where I remember so I had siblings that got into many different problems, right? I got into my own problems too, but I had a single particular problem that kept me away from drugs and alcohol, which was I got into cars. Cars and motorcycles was my number one thing. It was easier for me to give up getting married than to give up motorcycles. That's not a joke. I love motorcycles. I love speed. That's just where the adrenaline is in my life. So we would go race. I would end up stealing things. One time, it may sound like I'm bragging, but I'm just going to say it because I had such a disregard for humanity. One time I had in my car, because I was going on mechanic school and I had all my tools in my car. I drove on the highway. I saw this car that had rims that I really liked. Rims, the wheels, right, on a car. So I followed him. I followed him to see where he would go. And so I followed him all the way to the mall, a shopping mall in Arizona. And knowing that I had all my tools in my car, because I had already researched this. I know the size of the lug. I know what I need. I have the jack. I have the blocks and everything. Followed him to the mall. Within 2 minutes, I took all his wheels. And I didn't care. Because we had other cars where we did insurance scams. We would take a car, strip it down to the bare bones and sell all the parts and claim it as insurance. But that kept me away from drugs and alcohol. That was my problem. And they were just seeing, they didn't even get to see this. This is actually the first time they get to hear this now. They've gotten to hear many other things, but this is one of those. There was one time where they're calling me late at night, and if you guys are younger, I think you'll still get this. If I go out at night and my parents are calling me because I'm still living at home, well, actually I only had a pager. If they're calling me, I'm supposed to call back, call back, and I don't want to. Eventually, I realized it's already 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, they're calling me at night, but I was just going bowling. That's not even bad, right? It's not bad, I'm just going bowling. But if I call home now, I have to go home, and I haven't even started playing yet. So if I don't pick up, I don't call, then they'll just stop calling, right? It makes sense. And if they stop calling, then they will just go to sleep. And if they go to sleep, either I go home at 10 o'clock, get yelled at, or 12 o'clock, get yelled at, or 6 o'clock in the morning, it's all the same. I'm going to get yelled at. So just come home before they wake up. That's the plan. It's logic. Don't look at me like that. You all understand. It works. Okay? So I come home about 5 or 6 in the morning one time, and my car was loud. So I had to use a lot of power, get up to the hill, put it in neutral, turn off the engine, roll to the house, get to the door. And my front door, there's a deadbolt, a lock. I had to pull the door towards me, unlock it because the metal would rub on the lock there. And I have to make it straight shot to my room, straight shot to the left. I just have to be in bed before they wake up. And their room is up the stairs to the right. I have one mission, okay? Get in the house, unlock the door, get inside, and make it to my room. I get inside, dead silent, nothing. And I look over to the side where we have a place where we pray, and there's a silhouette. There's a silhouette of a figure who slowly stands up. And I can see the moonlight still coming through the window, and this silhouette is not a ghost, and it is of a woman. A very frail and tired woman. And she starts to walk towards me. And I am going to get it. But as she's walking, she doesn't have the energy to yell at me right now. You could tell by the way a person walks up to you how they're going to treat you. But I know what she's going to do. She's going to wake up my dad. I am so dead. But as she starts walking towards me, she doesn't say a single word. And as she's walking up the stairs, step after step after step, I realize within that mannerism that she has, she's in no attitude to wake up my dad. And as it dawns on me that I'm going to get away with this, it actually dawned on me and it started to hurt that I had fun all night long, she had to suffer, and she's going to take the weight of it and not me. And so as she was walking up to the last steps, I'm realizing she's not going to do it. I would rather her turn around, yell at me, wake up my dad, get my scolding, get my beating, get it over with. But she didn't. And it dawned on me in that moment, she doesn't do that to me because she hates me. They don't want me to come home because they want my life to be miserable. They do that because they love me. And when you realize there is another human being that is out there to love you, not just here. It's one thing to know that someone loves you. When you experience an intimate, personal love by God, in this case, first through my mom, it changes you. And I can't lie, I did the same thing the next weekend. I would still come home late, but it's different. And that sowed the seed, one after another after another. And so we lived up right in this area. This is where we were living. Westminster, And then so because some of my siblings got into drugs, some siblings got pregnant and things like that. So they were thinking, how do we get out of this? Both of them together. We are so stuck because we were so poor. And so what does he do? He works harder. We see him even less. Remove the poverty, remove the problem. Do you know what happened? Remove us from poverty, our fun, our joys, our pleasures just got more expensive. We were doing the exact same thing, continuing that misery in their lives. When does it end? I don't know if it ever does. And so they said, that's it. You know what? We escaped Vietnam. We got rid of our lives. We let go of everything. We took that chance. We have to escape this life. They escaped twice. They went from Vietnam to Southern California, and from Southern California, one day he comes home. After recently graduated high school, and they says, we're going to move to Georgia. Not Atlanta, Georgia. I know Atlanta is in Georgia, but they didn't move to Atlanta. They moved to nowhere, Georgia. He doesn't have any profession. He studied, doesn't speak English. What is he supposed to do now? How are you supposed to raise a family? So one of his friends has a chicken farm. Oh, I can chicken farm. How hard is it to go pick up eggs, right? Can't be that hard. We had 42,000 chickens. 42,000 chickens. And he did it by himself. Him and my mom. Why? So that we might have a future. We went from living here to Mission Viejo. Our neighborhood was near where Kobe Bryant would live. Mission Viejo. Laguna Beach, Mission Viejo. Why? So to get us out of poverty, but it wasn't enough. So he takes us out there to Georgia, in the middle of nowhere. And now he's looking at us. The older children, they all scattered. What are we supposed to do? Like, no, they went with their boyfriends, their girlfriends, they just left. I'm not doing what you're doing. Forget this. So I said, I'll stick around until the youngest ones are in high school and I'm out of here too. So we got there, and my younger brother comes home from school. And imagine, we're in a place that is so in the middle of nowhere, I can't even understand them. And they say to us, you're the first Chinese people we've ever met. We're not even Chinese. So it's just in the boondocks, right? In the middle of nowhere. So my brother comes home from school. My dad had invested everything into this farm. My younger brother comes home and he says, if I go to school here, I have no future. I'm not going into a real high school. I'm not going into a real college. That's it. Nothing. So what are we supposed to do? So my parents come back together again. It's like, what else can we do? God, where do we go? I have no skill, I have no talent, I've sold everything, and it's always for your children. What am I supposed to do? So he looks at my younger brother thinking, I've given you everything and I can't even give you a real education. At home, they were eating rice, as we always do, and maybe some Spam, maybe some vegetables. It's like, we have nothing else to give. Eventually they sold that. It's like, we can't. I don't know what else it is, but we cannot live here because it has no future. And again, we take the next step. They moved to Atlanta. And so my mom, at that time, close to 60 years old, 50-something, 60 years old, doesn't speak English, and decides to do hair, beautician school. Can you imagine an Asian woman barely speaking English, going to beautician school, trying to get classes, not understanding what people are asking, how humiliating that is? And having mistakes after mistakes after mistakes, and yet she would go. Why? For us. She saw beyond the situation, aimed for her children, because God, I trust you, these are yours. And God, little by little, granted us that much. And so they eventually did that. The kids, as we're getting older, all with their problems, little by little, starting to wind back and come back to the faith. Me, getting lost, doing my crazy things out there too. I guess it is kind of a spoiler alert to know that obviously I have shifted from what I was doing before. And I want to close with this before I close, and I want to say, it is a journey, our life. Every step of the way that we take, it's an option. I either live with my immediate surroundings here, or I break beyond this and see that God, you are taking care of this, you are taking care of me. There's something beyond this breach. That's what they always aimed for. Eventually, that youngest brother, he did go to high school, he did go to college. And my parents have always prayed, maybe a priest, maybe a nun. Vietnamese family, typical. Xin cầu cho có bác sĩ, right? Right? Cầu xin Chúa, a doctor please, a priest please, a nun please. We have all three. That youngest brother who came home and he says, I can have no education, he's a doctor in Orlando. Oldest sister comes back to the faith, starts to live close to them in Atlanta. Older brother turns his life around, comes home. But time after time, it's a series of, I died to myself for you, for love, because I trust you, God. I have a few minutes here. There's one story I just want to throw in here because it's a very powerful one for me. My older brother, the one that was kidnapped, when he was younger, he got into monkey bars, broke his arm, went into the hospital, and he's there in the hospital bed, and my dad scrapes as much as he can and buys him a little car because it's all he's ever always wanted. But we don't have extra money. We were living in the apartment at that time. While he's in the hospital, his partner at work, his son gets hurt, and he also needs to get like a birthday present. He needs to give that gift. So he takes my brother's gift and gives it to the other family. Can you imagine the failure you would feel that I cannot even gift you something to my own children? I'm looking so far ahead that I can't even love you now. But yet I will do it. I will try. And of the consequences, as they saw us, one after another, making their lives miserable, choosing ourselves, choosing society, choosing sin, blaming themselves that we always came up short. But now, as we've all come back together, older, that's the order of our family. These were the first three. She was the one that I was telling you that was in prison with them. He was the one that was kidnapped, the oldest one here. My parents in the middle. This is their 50th anniversary, which I got to celebrate the Mass for. Myself, and then the three younger ones. So this is the order of oldest to youngest. But I'm not saying this because if you do good, that it will turn out well. Because if I just leave the story at this, it sounds like, okay, eventually you'll turn out well. But you know what the thing is? It wasn't that it would eventually turn out well. For them, it was well, they had peace in that yes. We have been robbed so many times. Either physically, or sometimes just through scams. And yet they would say these words that were so annoying to me. It's like maybe the other person needs it more. But if God wants it, it's okay. So they had on the level of all this frustration down below, they said, it's okay. I trust you. And how do I become a saint? It's not some big thing later on. I trust you in this next step right in front of me. That's it. It's just the step in front of me. So it's crazy that I get to stand here today, come back to the place where I had basically failed society. Come back here as a priest, stand in front of you to share a story. Because only right down the street was where I felt like I was going to get married right before I entered. To come full circle, and then my parents who don't even live here who get to come and experience this with me. And so for the last 10 minutes up here in this time, I want to invite, come on, ba mẹ lên đây. Come on, ba mẹ lên đây chia sẻ với con một chút. So it's only 10 more minutes on the normal clock, so we'll give them this time to share a little bit of their time. To me, it's all those things that they've done. We coming back here now, amongst us as adults, we say, why and how have we been here? How have we gotten here? And it was through their example of, God, I trust you. I trust you, I trust the next step. And that's what they've always done. So this wasn't really part of the plan, but they were able to fly out and be with me while I give this talk. So that's why I want to invite them to come up here and share. Valentis. Vào cái trình 8 phút thôi nhé. Chia sẻ một chút về gia đình. Mẹ nói này.
Quý sơ, quý thầy, quý cha và quý ông bà và anh chị em. Thật sự, cha Vinh vừa mới chia sẻ hành trình vượt biên của gia đình. Chúng tôi ngồi dưới hết sức là xúc động. Nhưng mà cảm tạ ơn Chúa, tất cả mọi việc đã xảy ra từ những khó khăn có bàn tay của Thiên Chúa. Cho nên gia đình chúng tôi ngày hôm nay vẫn còn có nhau. Cha Vinh cũng đã có nói đó là gia đình gặp khó khăn, hai vợ chồng khác biệt nhau mà đã không muốn sống, mà rồi sinh ra những người con, rồi lớn lên các người con không vâng lời. Chính cha Vinh cũng nói cha Vinh không chịu đi học, những cái khó khăn một người mẹ đau khổ vì những người con lớn lên ở trên nước Mỹ này không biết hướng dẫn con. Nhưng mà ngày hôm nay Thiên Chúa ban cho gia đình chúng tôi như vậy là cũng hết lòng cảm tạ Thiên Chúa. Chúa dùng và Chúa ban cho những người con là những hồng ân, là những món quà mà khi các cháu còn bé chúng nó không biết. Tôi cứ nói Chúa ơi, Chúa cho con nhiều con vất vả quá, nhưng không biết đấy là những hồng ân Chúa ban, Chúa trao ban. Và cũng xin một lời nhắn nhủ là các em sinh ra trong cuộc đời là những món quà vô cùng quý giá Chúa trao cho mình. Xin quý ông bà và anh chị em, những người cha mẹ trẻ như vậy, ông bà như vậy, xin trân quý những món quà Chúa trao, Chúa ban. Người xúc động con chúng ta.
Thưa quý sư, thưa quý ông bà, quý chị, như cha Vinh vừa chia sẻ một hành trình từ khi còn nhỏ vượt qua từ miền Bắc về miền Nam, rồi từ miền Nam Việt Nam đi sang Hoa Kỳ, rồi ngay cả từ Hoa Kỳ, từ thành phố này đi sang tiểu bang khác. Bên cạnh cái cuộc hành trình thực tế, luôn luôn Chúa để một cái cuộc hành trình thiêng liêng bên cạnh những cái cuộc hành trình di chuyển từ nơi này nơi khác. Tạ ơn Chúa rằng trong bất cứ hoàn cảnh nào chúng tôi cũng được, không phải là bất cứ lúc nào, nhưng cũng rất nhiều khi trao đảo như những sóng biển mênh mông. Nhưng mà vẫn một nhìn về hướng trung cậy và ơn Chúa để bước cuộc hành trình đi đến cùng. Và cho đến bây giờ thì chưa biết nó chưa cùng, nhưng không biết là cuộc sống từ bây giờ cho đến khi ra khỏi cuộc đời thì như thế nào. Nhưng tôi cũng tha thiết xin Chúa cho con, cho vợ chồng con cái của chúng con, dù đời sống tu sĩ hay đời sống hôn nhân thì cũng được luôn luôn trung thành và nhìn về hướng tới để đạt đến mục đích cuối cùng. Xin hết lời cảm ơn quý bà và quý vị.
Cảm ơn con. Cảm ơn con.
Cha Vinh kết thúc.
I'll close with one line that they said not long ago. Because right now that movement that helped them restore their marriage, they started working for that movement and they've been traveling around the world. There were some years where they're traveling, doing more than 40 retreats a year internationally. There are only 52 weeks in a year. And so they're working with families, bringing other families together, teaching them how to love, teaching how to live with faith and hope. And one thing that they said one time, after about 35 years of doing this, they said, our greatest school of sanctity are our children. Meaning, our children is what God has placed into your lives, that God could form you and bring you to greater sanctity through the struggles, the difficulties, the love, the heartache, and the growth and expansion of your heart for others. And so, if you think I stand here today because I've worked myself here, no, it's through the blood and sweat of others who've gone before. And when God asked me, He invited my sister to that consecrated life or to a yes in married life. We all said yes because we've seen them do it thousands of times. It's a response of yes. So I ask that you, as we respond, God, I believe that there is a step beyond what I see. It's that faith. I can't see, it's just me. I haven't even spoken about this before, but there were some people asking me, how do I raise my children? My son does this, my daughter does this. You grow as a saint in your sacrifices, and you allow God to work through that. They would never know, would never be able to depict or think of where we would be today. But it's their love and sacrifices that God has used to bring us to be the person that we are today. And so that's what I invite you from this Congress. And the greatest love itself was the Eucharist. From this Congress, to take this story, where does God move me? How has God been sanctifying me in my life so I can go and be a gift, a beacon of hope in the lives of others around me? Thank you.